Yeah, we can just jump into the podcast. I don't know how many other like how much you've seen of episodes that I've done.
I actually watched the most recent one with that horror chick.
Amanda
Yeah,
Rachel's. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it occurred to me like, why am I not following you? Like, this is the perfect content for when I'm doing my art, but
yeah, I mean I try to keep it pretty casual, just talking with creators and just talking about their art and stuff. It's going to be
yeah.
kind of a weird episode because like the thing that you're talking about is like the same thing that I'm working on. And
Yeah.
I've had other collaborators on before. Like I had Chris McJunkin on in an early episode,
Hmm.
and I did one with Ed Bickford, of course, but like those were both guys that I had done stuff with previously. And that's not to say that we won't do more stuff in the future. Fingers
Hmm.
crossed, things are in planning stages, but it's different than like right now. The thing that you and I are both promoting is the thing that
Yes.
we're both working on together. So
Is
this
happening right now.
right. So this will be a very unique episode in that sense. Um, but yeah, so I guess we'll just get it out of the way. The
Yeah.
thing that we're promoting the most is the comic that we've been working on for the last
4 years.
4 years. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is the Uncontrollable Wreck-Lass, which is it's kind of a spin-off of Zero's Heroes, which we've been working on together for a long time. But
Hmm.
it's I don't want to give too much of a hard pitch for it, but it's an all ages superhero comic.
We're promoting the comic. Do a
Yeah,
pitch.
I know. This is a problem that I have throughout my entire life of
Oh yeah,
like
the total
working for
imposter
stuff, and
syndrome.
then when it comes time to like self promote, I'm just like, whatever, it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, like I see all of those like Kickstarter posts on Twitter and stuff and be like, I don't know, it's like some dumb like phrase and be like, back my Kickstarter. And I'm just like, oh, that's so lame. But now I'm like, crap, that's what I need to be doing right now.
Right. I know. Yeah.
Got to
That
stop judging.
yeah, that was something that I learned too. It's like you really there's an interesting thing that happens, I think, with a lot of creators where it's kind of like this eternal struggle between the pure artist and the sleazy used car salesman.
Yeah.
Like you have to be
Yeah.
both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very frustrating. And I think a lot of artists struggle with it a lot, and
Yeah.
others less so. I think other people can kind of like zone in on that, and they have less
Mm-hmm.
problems with it. But
Yeah, I've had a little bit of practice with that now, but like I still hate being the sleazy car salesman kind of person. Like I want to
mhm.
be that relatable like person next door who happens to be a nerd.
Yeah.
So, but
I've
you have to appeal to more of those people if you want to sell your comics, and that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird space to be in. I've kind of been honing it because like I've been working in a comic book shop for the last several months,
That's right.
and which is an awesome new job, and I
Yeah,
absolutely love it.
congrats, by the way.
Well, thank you. But it has definitely helped. It's kind of helped me to think about that, like finding that like right space to be in, where it's like, okay, you need to be relatable. You need to
Mhm.
honestly talk about things and be like, I love comic books. Let's talk about comic books. But also, I'm trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird place to be in, I think, for a lot of creatives.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah,
think I'm getting
actually,
better at it.
the weirdest thing, the weirdest connection that I have to that is that my spouse works in data analytics for a bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he knows that like it, companies need those cookies. They need your data in order to sell you things, in order to
Mm-hmm.
like effectively market. And so like I've begun to accept all of those like data tracking things that we deal with every day. Like,
Yeah.
Google knows where I've been. That's fine. Like,
Right.
you got to eat, right?
Right.
And
Well,
that's true for big corporations. And
I hate to admit it, but I've been the victim of like targeted advertising before, where I see something like it's like you've posted about Black Sabbath before, so here's something Black Sabbath related that
oh
you
yeah,
you will like, and I'll be like, oh damn, I do like that. And I only know of that because like
Mm,
their algorithm targeted it on me,
yeah. Yeah,
and
Amazon
it
did that to me
worked.
the other day. I was buying a birthday present for my spouse, and I bought an ice cream maker. And it was like, people who buy this also buy this book by Ben and Jerry about how to make ice cream. And I'm like, well, dang, who better to learn from? You got me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the struggle of our current time, of like the finding, as I was saying, like the finding the artistic purity, but also within the very specific algorithm focused
Hmm.
salesman environment.
Yeah,
It's a tough place to be in.
it is. But the ads that I really enjoy by YouTubers are definitely the ads that are like a little bit weird and also
Hmm.
them. So
And
I
also a
try
little
to,
self-aware.
yeah, yeah.
Like there's kind of an acceptance. Like we all understand advertising is a thing, so let's have fun with it.
Hmm.
Which is kind of it's almost like a weird like 360.
Yeah.
Like in the olden times, everybody just like knew advertising was a thing and they accepted it. And
Hmm.
here's your ad jingle, here's your here's your
Hmm.
commercial, and that's fine. And then at a certain point, we all got sick of it. And we said,
Yeah.
"Boo! It's all fake. It's all just they're just trying to sell you something. It's not
Hmm.
artistic integrity. Bah humbug. We don't like ads." And now here we
And now
are.
the gig economy is here, and we're
And
like,
now the gig
oh,
economy's here, right? Exactly. And so everybody's like, "Okay, well, we don't like ads, but we accept that they're a part of it. So let's make it fun." And
yep.
it's kind of like back to square one, where it.
I kind of like this place that we're at though. Like it seems like a happy middle ground.
I agree. Yeah. So I don't want to lead too much at the front of this podcast just talking about Wreck-Lass. I mean, I'm going to say it a few more times. The
Hmm.
Uncontrollable Wreck-Lass on Kickstarter. Everybody should back it. Everybody should
October
support
5th.
it. October 5th. By the time this episode goes up, the Kickstarter will have been launched. So if you're seeing this and you haven't already backed the Kickstarter, make sure you go do it right now.
You're
You
gonna
will
put the
not be
link in the
disappointed.
description, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. A link will be in the
Okay.
description. All of that. But one of the things I like doing on this podcast is just talking to other creators and just kind of like learning about them and hearing
Yeah.
about what they do. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that in the 10 years that I've been doing self-published comics, 10 years plus, actually. I hesitate to
Mhm.
say that because 10 years sounds nice and prestigious, but when you get more than that, it starts to sound like too much. I don't know.
Why?
But anyway, I might cut that out. But
Oh,
anyway, in the time that I've been making comics, I've learned that making comics is a very isolated process. Like you're just in your studio working by yourself.
yeah.
Maybe you're exchanging emails with, well, you're most likely exchanging emails with people, and maybe you have some kind of instant messaging text message, and if you're
Hmm.
really lucky, you've got somebody that is willing to video chat with you on
Yeah.
occasion, to like work stuff out. So it can be a very, I don't know, not necessarily lonely, but just like an isolating experience where
Hmm.
you're just working by yourself all the time. So one thing that
Yeah.
I've learned is that a lot of artists and writers and creators are perfectly happy to sit and talk about themselves for an hour because they don't usually have anybody else to talk to.
Oh gosh, now you got me on the spot. Oh,
Yeah. Well, so that's why I like talking to people. That's partially why I started this podcast.
yeah.
But so I know, like you and I have worked together for a long time, but when did you, like, do you remember like when you decided to just go into art as at least as a part-time hobby? Like when did you kind of like make that jump from?
I think I remember. I don't think it was like a singular decision, but it was definitely like a series of events that kind of spiraled into this desire. Back in college, probably 2008 ish,
Mhm.
or whenever the Michael Bay Transformers movie came out, I got really into that.
Yeah, that was 2007-ish, I think, is when that movie came out. So yeah, 2007, 2008. Yeah.
And I got super into the fandom, and I was always like a doodler anyway, so I started drawing some stuff. And then I found this fan project called Transformers Spotlight on DeviantArt. You could probably still find it. Just search for Transformers Spotlight. And people would just do single page comics about their favorite Transformer, about whatever they wanted to do, just like extra canon-y, fanficky stuff. And because it was a fan project, they put out a call for anybody who wanted to help. And I got picked to color a few pages, and I really enjoyed it. And that, plus one of my friends in college was making a webcomic at the time, and that really tipped me off to, oh, this is a thing you can do. Like, oh, I really love coloring. Like, this is super fun. I want to do this. And then as I was in college for physics, by the way, because I thought I was going to be a researcher or something at CERN, I also wanted to study abroad in Japan. And the university over there didn't have any physics classes. So in order to do that, I had to double up on my physics in order to have a free semester to go to Japan. And that, 2 physics classes in the same term, that was hard.
I'll bet.
I don't remember which ones that they were, but that was just probably one of the worst parts of my college career. And all I wanted to do after that was draw. It's like, I was tired at the end of the day. I just wanted to doodle my fun little characters, and color Transformers. And so after that, and then after I finished out my college degree and realized that, like, I didn't really have enough to do anything in physics or engineering, I was like, I'll just go and get a part-time job and try out comics. And like, thank goodness I found you, because you actually paid me. And that was a lot of my after college years, was just like working at Steak and Shake, making comics, coloring Zero's Heroes. And
I guess we should say, for those that don't know, we've worked together for a long time. Even before we started doing Uncontrollable Wreck-Lass, you were the first colorist that I had on Zero's Heroes. I mean, going back I think it was
2011, actually.
2011 is probably when I started. Because we had been doing the comic for a while. I had all of Sergio's run, the first 7 chapters done.
Yep.
And then I decided I wanted to do the print book, and I wanted to do it in color, and we were going to recolor the whole book. So I had you working like double time, just catching up on pages, just paying you to color everything.
Yep.
And because like, not many people will know this, like the old website, newhavencomics.com, I did run the Zero's Heroes as a black and white comic. And then when I hired you to do the colors, we reposted everything in color. And then that eventually became the printed book, the Zero's Heroes Volume 1, which, I had that printed in 2012. So it would have been 2011.
That's right. Yeah.
That, because 2012 was when I did my first like in-person convention. I had been
That's right.
I've been doing the comic for a few years, just, basically by myself, just me and Sergio, working. And, but yeah, so
was that when you went to Planet, or was that in St. Louis?
The first one was St. Louis, which I think you came to that one. That was a Wizard World.
I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah.
And because we had actually been working together before that, because we went to the Project Comic-Con in St. Louis, but we didn't have a table there. I think we printed the convention special first, and we just went to that just to like hang out at the con and kind of promote, just like hand out the book to whoever we saw there. And then Wizard World, the following season.
Oh gosh, Wizard World.
We did that. That was like my first con behind a table, and we had the trade paperback printed, and also the convention special.
Yeah,
that was 2012.
Right. Gosh, that was a long time ago.
I know, right? It's crazy to think about.
Oh,
I'm kind of fascinated that your kind of your gateway into doing art was through Transformers fandom. Were you a
yeah,
big
it's
Transformers fan?
not before that, but I was always like a big cartoon fan. Like it's kind of
Okay.
weird that I'm in comics now because I'm not like hugely into like old comics at all.
Mm-hmm.
But my gateway into that world was like old superhero TV shows,
Oh,
like
sure.
90s
Yeah.
Spider-Man and Batman and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, when I got really into the fandom, like I went back and watched the 80s Transformers and like
Mm-hmm.
Beast Wars and got super into Beast Wars. Um, and I've always been one to like binge watch things, especially in
Yeah.
college. Um, so yeah, that's what I did, and
Yeah.
I've
I
always
just
kind of
think
wanted to make.
that's
Oh,
funny
sorry.
because like I'm a kid of the 80s. So like I was into Transformers at the time.
Uh huh.
Like I had the Transformers toys, Transformers
Oh.
and GI Joe, Ninja Turtles and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my thing. And I remember there being a period in the 90s when like none of that was cool. Like there was a total like drought where
Mm-hmm.
like GI Joe dropped off and Transformers dropped off, and Beast Wars was kind of the tiptoeing back into
Yeah, it was kind
Transformers.
of like the underdog.
Yeah.
I remember, I feel like 1996 was a really good year because that's the year that the animated Superman came out. And I'm sure
Yes.
there must have been other stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, like Batman was kind of like, it was in 92. So that was like
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
little bit
Batman was
of
coasting.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there was like Spider-Man and
Mm-hmm.
then
Spider-Man, the
Superman
the, the
and then
X-Men, Superman, the Justice League
Justice
cartoon. Yeah.
Gargoyles and like all that
Gargoyles. Yeah.
stuff just kind of,
Yeah. No, the 90s was a great time for cartoons because that was kind of like I had that too, where I was into comics as a kid, and then all the cartoons were coming out, and
mm,
to me it was like double the adventure.
yeah.
It's like I love the comic books, and now I get to see them as a cartoon. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm,
This is the incredible thing. So yeah, I'm not at all surprised to hear that per se, because I do think that the 90s was great for animation. It really
mm-hmm,
did. It was kind of like this. It was like the decade long stepping stone it took to get to the point where today, or even 10 years ago, where
mm-hmm.
superhero movies were like dominant
Yeah.
pop culture, and that couldn't have
Mm-hmm.
happened without all the cartoons in the 90s
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like leading the path and
Mm-hmm.
setting everything straight.
And it all began with Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day, and I forget where I heard this. It was some behind the scenes thing. And they were saying that that was the first cartoon
Hmm.
that was cast like a legit thing and not like a
Yeah, it
cartoon.
came out in theaters
Oh my
and it
gosh.
bombed. Like I wanted
Like
to go see it
I
so
can kind of
bad.
see why.
Oh sure.
Like
Yeah.
there's a couple of songs in that where like I'll play that song for people and I'll just be like, "And guess where this came from? Batman." Yeah, it's a love song. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, and it also had the unfortunate timing of coming in after Batman and Robin, which had
Yeah.
bombed so hard.
Oh.
Everybody was just sick of Batman. They just were like, "We're done with Batman. We don't want
Hmm.
any more Batman." And the
Yeah.
cartoon was really good, but just in the pop culture sense, like people were
Yeah.
just they didn't want it,
Yeah.
and it's too
But
bad.
we wanted it as
We did,
kids.
yeah. It holds up. I think it's still great.
Yeah, it doesn't talk down to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what got me into like adventure and stuff was all those superhero shows. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely shows in your art. Um,
mm,
I think that you are definitely a child of the 90s.
mm,
Something I see from a lot of new artists, especially people that succeed in webcomic art, which is
mm,
that their art looks very much influenced by animation, and that
hmm.
it's a lot of like clean lines,
Yep.
bright colors, and it looks like it could easily transcribe into an animated series. Like it just
Hmm.
looks like animation cells with word balloons,
Yeah.
as opposed to before the 90s, like all comic art. I don't want to I hesitate to use the term gritty because that carries so much weight to it now. Like I don't necessarily mean grim and gritty, but
Hmm.
the line art itself was heavy. There was a lot of inks
Yeah. A
and
lot of blacks,
a
a
lot of
lot of
blacks. Yeah,
hmm.
exactly. Because the coloring technology wasn't really there So the black and white art really had to carry the image, and the coloring was just there as like a little sub, like to like infer what was going on. Like the coloring was just kind of pasted on there, but it was really in the line art that really carried the piece. And then after the 90s,
now with like Photoshop,
yeah,
and digital printing, you can do whatever kind of colors you want.
Exactly. And
it's like rainbow explosion.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The comment, like the technology is caught up to where artists like caught up to artists' imagination, you know. And so I do think that there's an absolute generational divide between like people that were like working on or influenced by the 80s and then the 90s, where like if you were influenced by cartoons and comics being made in the 2000s, like all of that is 100% Adobe, Photoshop, and Illustrator, and like the color, it's 100% Technicolor, computer coloring, you know, like and I definitely think that comes through in your art for sure.
Oh yeah, you can tell I'm a colorist because the lines are like really small and colors are huge and gradients everywhere.
But it really makes the pages pop too.
Yeah.
There's one thing. That's another thing I've noticed too. Is like all that stuff I just said. You can still tell the difference between animation and like a really full comic page. Like even if it's what I'm saying, like art that's kind of designed to be the like halfway to animation. There's so much more going on in the coloring, like with shading and everything, that most animation studios, unless you're like Disney, where you're just pumping money and time into it, they're not gonna do that level of detail, even in the coloring.
Yeah, because you just got to get it out so fast.
Right. Yeah, there's just a time crunch, you know.
And nothing will improve your art more than webcomics, by the way, which I learned doing How We Stay Sane at Work, which was my project starting in 2013. I knew that I wanted to do something that was a bit more long form, but I was just so overwhelmed by it. And so I decided to do a smaller project, like literally in every way. The strips were newspaper sized, you know, extra small. It was mostly talking heads. But I had a weekly deadline. And that was the big thing where like I just had to call it done and like post it. And that was huge because it got me over you know, posting my less great art. It got me working faster. It just got me that kind of experience that kind of soaks into your brain, and then without even realizing it, like eventually you're making better and better decisions about your art. And that's what I love, because I am lazy.
I mean, I think everybody is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
To some degree.
And yet, you know, you only have so much brain power to devote to stuff, and you have to figure out where to best put it. And yeah, I agree. So you started doing how we stay sane at work, because that was one thing I wanted to talk about, because that was your first kind of leap into doing more like full comic art. You've been working with me primarily as a colorist. How much art training had you had before that? Like, did you, like, I know you said you had gone to school for physics, like why art for you? I took like 2 art classes in college.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, one was printmaking, by the way. So what inspired me to do art, despite the fact that I had no training? Well, I mean, I had dabbled for a really long time. Like I didn't call myself an artist, but honestly, I'd been drawing since like the 8th grade. You know, like I was the kid that devoured books until I figured out that I could draw, and then nope, no more books anymore. Like I was just doodling on everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I just got a bunch of experience just mostly drawing my role-playing characters, honestly. Like it's a little embarrassing, but I did a lot of role play back in the day.
Hey, Zero's Heroes, my first comic, was born out of role playing.
That's
like
true,
that I did with my friends.
So like I've been drawing different characters and stuff, and I kind of got into coloring because I guess it was a little bit easier than
Mm-hmm.
drawing. My art was definitely not up to where Sergio's was, or
Mm-hmm.
anybody that I'd want to try and emulate. So coloring was a bit easier for me to wrap my brain around at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was just it was a step at a time,
Yeah.
you do what you're ready for. And I started How We Stay Sane at work because honestly, I was a little jealous of you.
Oh, wow.
I'd come with you to all these conventions, and you'd be like, look, I have this book and this book and this book and this book. And I'd be like sitting next to you being like, I do commissions.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
And, I wanted a little bit of that for myself and be like, look, I made a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I did that, and it's super satisfying seeing your work like in paper in front of you. And I'd gotten that with Zero's Heroes a little bit, but like How We Stay Sane at Work was even more of
Yeah.
that because it was all me.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I mean, Wreck-Lass is going to be even better because like
Right.
that's a long form comic. That's like I had to learn to draw cards kind of thing.
I know.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I that's something I always think about because I I'm somebody who's always actually kind of like been into art. I just never been happy enough with my art to do my own comics. And
Oh.
there's that huge fear of like I because like I know I've been writing and self-publishing comics for a long time. I know how
Hmm.
much work goes into a comic book page. Like I can
Yeah.
draw a figure, you know what I mean? Like I can draw a figure, but it's like
Hmm.
I know the type of scenes that I write. Like I know, like it's like you said, I'm gonna have to learn how to draw
Yep.
cars and then trees and then a train and then a
Yep.
dog
Yep.
and it's like that.
No,
It's
that's
all
exactly where I was. Like you can definitely tell like my style of drawing buildings gets better from chapter one,
mhm.
progressively. And they're still not like amazing buildings, but they're better. They're more cohesive.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, like
Well, that is one thing. I mean, I know this is kind of like it's the cliched advice, which is just start drawing and just do it for X amount of time and you'll be
yeah,
surprised at the end of it how much better you are. But it's
honestly.
always true, and I think it's eminently evident in Wreck-Lass. And it's not just I've heard that from other people. Like I know a
Mm,
lot of we're both friends with a lot of the same Kansas City creators, and I know a
mm-hmm,
lot of them say the same thing. Like your art has really come a long way in the last four
thank you.
years. And I mean I said that too to my to Christopher Harris. Like he was somebody who it's it's one of those things where it sounds like a backhanded compliment, but it's not. Like it's always I think it's amazing to be able to watch an artist and be like, okay, I'm into them now when they start, and
Hmm.
I can see the skill, and it's a little rough, but I like it. And then after
Yeah,
a, a relatively short period of time, see them really come into their own. And it's such a
yeah,
unique thing
that's
that you almost can only get that in social media these days.
yeah, in
Yeah,
webcomics.
like web
Hmm.
comics, to like see the artistic growth.
Hmm.
It really is something to
That's
behold.
that's one of my favorite things about webcomics. And that's when people say like, oh, I've been doing this for so long, but chapter one's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
My advice is just like publish it anyway.
Yeah.
I complain so much about my art, and people who don't know art look at it and be like, I would never have seen the difference if you hadn't said anything. So uh
Yeah,
it's really hard to get out of your own head, but you
it
got to do
is.
it
Yeah,
for your own good.
yeah. There's
Um,
definitely that aspect too of it's like I don't know how to say this without sounding a little not backhanded or condescending, but
mm,
it's hard to look at art. It's hard to look at an artistic page that you've done, like written or drawn,
mm.
and try to look at it from the perspective of somebody who has
No
no
measuring
no
stick.
measuring
Yeah.
statistics. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not saying that I know things more than other people, but also I do. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
No,
I'm like,
that's totally a thing. I forget what the name of the effect is called, but yeah, it's like
mm-hmm,
people who are really skilled a lot of the time underestimate their skill level.
Right.
And it's a little bit of word has left my head. It's it's a little bit of, self-deprecating and a little bit of like imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
but
There's absolutely an angle, like an aspect of that. But it gets a little tricky too when you talk about art, because art has that subjective quality to it where it's like, there's, the age old thing of like, I don't know art, but I know what I like, type of a thing. And it's like, I kind of respect that, because I don't think you have to be a scholar or an art critic to be able to like enjoy things or know why you like things. You like what you like, and that's fine. But at the same time, like when you're evaluating your own work, it's really hard to get out of your own incredibly artistically slanted, self-critical sense, and just like to see it with fresh eyes, as it were. So that's tricky.
Yes, it is. Oh, that's why deadlines help, because no matter what, it's got to be done.
Yeah.
So.
I think deadlines are probably the best thing for like a creator just trying to improve, especially trying to improve, like, but also if you're just trying to accomplish anything, it's at the end of the day, it's not going to get done unless it gets done. And that sounds really simple, but it's true. Like you can fret all day about whether or not it's good, but whether or not it's good or bad doesn't mean it's done. And the only way people are going to see it is if it's done. So I think I'm a big fan of the artist Michael FIFA. He does the book Copra, an indie book. And in volume 1 of that, he talks a lot about there's like an after at the end of the book. He kind of talks about Jack Kirby and just like the art of the deadline, and just knowing when to just be done with the page and move on to the next thing, because you got to hit that deadline. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect, it is what it is. And that in and of itself is what makes it really good. Like just being able to just like do it and be done with it and move on. And it's all it's part of a whole. So the individual part may not be perfect or as great as you want, but it is just one part of a whole, which will or can end up being really great.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's just an important thing to remember. Like it's you got to not hyper focus on like the one panel. It's because it's just one panel. Like in our case, it's one panel in a 165 page book.
Yep. Yeah, and you've got a fight scene to draw later, so you got to save your energy.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a little bit more about Wreck-Lass, because we've been working on it for 4 years, as we said. I almost can't believe it's been 4 years, but at the same time, like, I know how long it takes to make a book. And I think that was something I said to you when we first started this. And admittedly, I was maybe a little naive, and I was like, I think I projected 2 years. And I was like, even if it takes 2 years, it'll feel very long, but you'll be surprised at how quickly 2 years goes by. And that's still true, I think. But also, here we are 4 years later. And
and I don't remember whether I agreed with you or laughed at you at the time, but like, here we are now.
Well, it definitely was a project that grew as we developed it, because I know I wasn't planning on it being 165 pages. Like when we first discussed it, we were talking, we had always had it set at 12 chapters for the whole book, but we were planning on it being 10 to 12 pages per chapter. I think that was, I gave myself the wiggle room of 2 pages each chapter. And
then stuff started getting to like 20 pages long. And
the final chapter is a solid 20 pages.
And I think I added one of those in as well.
So
I'm always like, slow things down. I'm gonna need more panels.
Yeah, well, and that's always the tricky thing with long form fiction, because it's really easy to do short stories early on when you're just like introducing characters and setting things up. But then when you get to the the climax or the payoff. Like you want to have these moments for your characters that you've been with for so long, and you want to give them their space, and you want to give it like a proper proper send off, proper space, as I was saying. So I think we definitely found ourselves in that situation.
Yeah, and I don't know. I always enjoy drawing character moments.
Yeah,
it's a thing that I love. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
Well,
But
good.
I'm super interested to hear what your favorite parts of the comic are.
My favorite parts of the comic. Well, let's see. That's kind of difficult because, like, yeah. I mean, I love the whole book, obviously. I think my favorite parts of the comic would be chapter. I'm sorry, I have a cat on my lap.
I could see.
Yeah,
who is this friend?
This is Damien, and
Aw.
he is a big, fat, needy lap cat, and he loves to be on a lap, but he is also incapable of getting comfortable. So he'll just constantly like get up and move around, and he'll sit down for like 30 seconds and then get up and move around. So I might throw him off my lap in a minute, but we'll see. But I think my favorite chapter of Wreck-Lass, I probably have. Well, I'll tell you my two favorite moments, which also coincidentally I think they came one after the other. Was chapter 6. I would have to actually look at my files, which I might just go ahead and do just to make sure. But I believe it was chapter 6. That was the chapter where we had. That was the first chapter where. Chapter 6, I believe, was the first chapter where the two stories chapter, intersected. Right? Mm-hmm. What was that?
I was going to say that must be a Smugly chapter because it's an even numbered one, and for a while we were kind of going back and forth.
Ooh, that's right. So,
but I think you might be right. That might be the bodega. Chapter.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So no, 6 actually was the chapter of where Smugly meets Animal Enlarger in the animal shelter, which I did love.
Really? That wasn't chapter 4?
No, chapter 4 was when they meet. I'm sorry. Chapter 6 was where we have Animal Enlarger meet his parole officer, and they're in his apartment, and we do the little history of cats, and Smugly makes her speech, which I did love that because that was so much fun writing.
Oh, I bet you had to use so many big words.
I did. I really liked writing for Smugly because like I just like whipped out my thesaurus, and I just it was like I channeled my inner Pinky in the Brain, you know, with Smugly. Like I just like making her this haughty, like she's purposely trying to talk over everybody that she meets just to prove how smart she is. But yeah, it was what I was thinking was chapter 7 and chapter 8 actually. Ooh. So the middle of the book is my favorite, I guess, but because chapter 6 is great because we get to have that fun moment. But chapter 7 was where we have our little Zero's Heroes moment where Wreck-Lass goes on her she gets chewed out at the school for events that happened before, but then Powerline, the Zero's Heroes character, hears her up, takes her out for ice cream, and then they have.
I always forget about that scene. I don't know why I forget about the juggler scene.
The juggler, right? My favorite character. And I really liked that scene because although this was meant to be like a standalone graphic novel, I was really worried that because we were so concerned about space, like time, and I was really trying to condense this story, like 10 chapters a page. And as a result, it felt really, just really like condensed, I guess is the word, of just like setting up characters, and everything up until this point felt like setup. Because we do have a pretty large cast of characters. So we're setting up Wreck-Lass.
There's like 5 characters, and then Smugly and Bobby, and
that's a lot of people. So it's like we set like one chapter to set up Wreck-Lass, one chapter to set up Smugly, one chapter to set up Wreck-Lass's friends, one chapter to set up Smugly, and then another chapter to let's see, chapter 5 was them at the school chapter 5 was to set up the bullies.
So it's like
5 chapters where it was constantly setting up things. And I felt, I mean, I liked it. I thought we were doing a good job of kind of like we were seeing it through Wreck-Lass and Smuggling, but it was all constant.
Yeah, that's
setup.
a lot to wade through, especially for a webcomic, because that's like 2 years of updates.
Exactly. So we were constantly just like introducing characters. And then 7 was the chapter where it was like, oh, let's just have the characters just have an adventure. So we had like Wreck-Lass got to go just get ice cream, and that's where they just have a random run-in with a supervillain, the Juggler, who is a parody of the Joker. And I was so happy with this because I wrote this scene way before the Joaquin Phoenix movie came out.
Really? I thought you were inspired by it.
I was inspired by, I believe, maybe the first trailer. I think the trailer came out and it was like a serious take on the Joker. And I was like, oh, this is going in the script. And so I wrote this idea for a serious take on the Joker, but he's called the Juggler. And it was all just heavy-handed puns. It was him complaining, like it was, I think I used the dialogue because he's delivering all the exposition in dialogue like classic Silver Age supervillain form.
Yeah.
And he's complaining about, society. I was complaining about society. Society forces us to juggle all these indignities.
And Powerline and Wreck-Lass just take it in stride. Like, this is the stuff they deal with 24/7.
Right. He's just a supervillain. So we got to just like stop him from blowing up this ice cream parlor.
Yeah.
Because he's mad because somebody stole his wallet and he doesn't have money to pay for his ice cream. And he blames society because he doesn't know who took his wallet. Perfectly
normal person who just wears a trench coat over his jester outfit.
Exactly. He's got a jester costume that he wears a coat over. He just wears it all the time. So I was really happy with that because the timing of it was perfect. I think the trailer for the movie came out and I was like, oh, that's going in the script. And I wrote that scene out and it was like, I didn't even do a second draft. I think that was the rawest script I've ever delivered. Wow. And I was like, here we go. This is the next chapter. And, when it was drawn and then uploaded to the website, that chapter came out, I'm not kidding, like the week that the Joker movie came out.
What? And we managed it?
We'll have to check the timeline, but I'm almost positive the first couple of pages came out before the movie came out.
Wow.
And then the movie dropped and I saw the movie relatively early. And I was like, after watching the movie, I was like, oh my God, I nailed it. It was like perfect. Everything that I was making fun of in the trailer, it was exactly what was in the movie.
That is going to date this book so hard.
I was a little worried about that actually, but at least I'm happy that I think that the Joker, that Joaquin Phoenix movie is going to endure as a lasting version of the Joker. Like you're always going to have people in cosplay as like Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix. It's always going to be a version. So I think that it's not going to be like too dated, but I did think it was hilarious that like the timing was incredible. Like I just, like I threw that in there after seeing the trailer. And by the time it went up on the website, it's when the movie came out and it was, and not to toot my own horn, but I thought it was a pitch perfect parody.
It was pretty great. I've been thinking about in edits, like going back to like flip the color of his makeup, but maybe I won't now. Maybe I'll just leave it.
No, I definitely think it needs to be left because it is perfectly, again, like, because specifically like the way I was presenting the character, it's the version that is in the Joaquin Phoenix movie,
Oh boy.
It's just heavy-handed social satire where the character, I mean, the Joker movie ends with Joaquin Phoenix saying something like, oh, the punchline is that the joke he tells to Robert De Niro, spoiler alert, I guess if you haven't seen the movie, where
you mean that beam that's going around everywhere?
Right, exactly. Like, what do you like? You get what you effing deserve, like that. Like, what do you get when you cross a mentally handicapped person with a society who doesn't care? You get what you deserve, which is like that's a fine line for the climax of your movie, but it's also so heavy-handed, and I thought it was as heavy-handed as everything that I put in that chapter. So I was very happy with that. And then my other favorite moment, which is the chapter that came right after that, which is because these were the two chapters where we had Wreck-Lass kind of coming into contact with Smugly and kind of crossing paths. Because before that, I guess if for anybody that hasn't read the comic, the way we were doing it is each alternating chapter was showing the story of Wreck-Lass's life and Smugly's life, and they were independent. It was just Wreck-Lass doing her thing, Smugly doing her thing, and then they cross paths briefly in chapter 7, where Smugly is the one who steals the juggler's wallet.
Spoiler.
Spoiler, yeah, I guess, you could just go read the
it's all
comic.
free to read online. You can spoil yourself right now.
Okay, but this cat is getting off my lap.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Damien. You scratched me. So, yeah, 7 was the first where they don't really like directly interconnect, but they're both in the same scene, and they're kind of like they're inadvertently crossing paths. And then chapter,
and 7 is the field trip chapter.
That no, that's chapter 9, I think. Yeah, that's chapter
right.
9.
The convenience store thing happens first.
Yeah, chapter 8 is where they're at the bodega, and that's where Wreck-Lass and Smugly specifically meet each other. And Wreck-Lass,
that was a fun one.
That was probably I like chapter 7. I'm talking about it just to toot my own horn because I think it's beautifully satirizing the Joker movie. But chapter 8 was probably the most fun because we got to actually see some real fun classic superhero action with
weird powers. And
yeah, we got to see them use their powers. Smugly use her
a little bit of comedy
and some comedy.
I don't know. I loved where Wreck-Lass and her friends walk in, and it's originally a comedy because Wreck-Lass breaks the door on her way in on accident, and they just kind of walk in on this robbery happening, and there's a cat sitting on the counter, and somebody putting money in a bag, and Wreck-Lass clocks it instantly, but she's second guessing herself, and she's like, "Is this a robbery?"
Right.
And I don't know. That was one of my favorites.
Because Wreck-Lass is a superhero, and so she's used to seeing stuff like this. But she's been going to school where they're trying to tell her, don't constantly just jump into fighting and doing all this weird stuff. You need just to be a normal kid. So she gets there and she's like, "Oh wait, what's going on?"
And plus, she's not with Zero's heroes, so she's not in prime crime
hero
detecting mode. Yeah.
And it's the first time she's really we set up in this book. It's the first time she's really had a chance to just kind of relax and be a kid and have fun. Where with Zero's heroes, she's just always a superhero. Yep. She's just gone as a kid, she was just training all the time, and then with Zero's heroes, she's just a hero. And she
dealing with people who are way older than her, so they have adult problems.
Right, yeah, and there's no socializing with normal kids. So this chapter was her socializing with normal kids, and then they stumble into this robbery. And that chapter also holds a special part for me because I humbly asked you to draw my cat Domino into that chapter as the other cat, because we set up that at the bodega there's another cat that's the store cat, and Smugly is robbing the place, and Animal and Larger, and they long story short, they use their powers combined to make the cat big to distract Wreck-Lass and her friends and fight them. And we got to have some fun cat jokes, superhero action, and a little bit of a tease for what the climax of the book is going to be.
Yeah.
So I thought it all it was a nice stepping stone to the climax. But it was also, again, after 100 pages, of
just about
kind of all this setup, we finally got to settle into just the characters doing some adventure stuff.
Although you kept giving me fun stuff to draw through the whole book.
I tried, there was definitely
you're really good at.
There was
what I'm saying.
That I definitely had an attention to each chapter. We need to have something it's a kid's comic and it's a superhero comic, so there needs to be something constly visually
the vegetable army in chapter 3 or whatever, or whatever the bully chapter was.
Yeah,
The Vegetable Army was great. What else? Throwing a bear into a playground. That was wild. Oh gosh, what else? Somebody being attacked in a toilet paper aisle. Honestly, I'm the one who put the toilet paper there, but that was still funny. And I had no idea that I'd be posting it like right as toilet paper panic buying was going around.
I was gonna say, this is another serendipitous timing of like there's a global pandemic going on and there's a toilet paper shortage, and
when I was drawing it, I was just like, okay, so she's being chased to the back of the store. What's usually in the backs of stores? Toilet paper. Okay, let's keep going. And then I posted it, and I think somebody commented on Tapastic and was like, oh, you'd never see that much toilet paper in an aisle right now. And I was like, I didn't even clock that.
Yeah. That was another fun. That's another fun example of the synergy that can come with the collaboration of a writer and an artist. Because I think the script on that chapter was probably like cat lunges at Angel.
Yeah.
It was probably pretty simple.
Yeah.
And it was your decision to put it in the toilet paper aisle. But then, because I lettered the book as well. And so then when I got the page back, that provided the perfect punchline for the page when I could then have Angel say like, oh God, I don't want to die in the toilet paper aisle.
Yeah.
Like what a horrible place to die. And so that that line definitely wasn't in the script beforehand, because I certainly didn't set it in the toilet paper aisle. But
yeah,
that's one of the things I love about making comics, is that back and forth of setting things up and then moving it on and then changing it and pivoting as you get the art. That's really fun.
Yep. Oh dang. Yeah. Writers think up things to draw that you would never think of drawing. And sometimes it's not like a classroom full of desks. Sometimes it's something fun, like a vegetable army.
That was my personal favorite too. Yeah, especially because that was, I think it was just a single page, like even just a single panel.
It was one panel in the page.
One panel.
It was like
favorite.
Oh, Mr. Vince wasn't here. I mean, he's probably. Did I cut out there?
Yeah, it like briefly blipped out. I don't know why.
Anyway,
but it was something about he'll be there on time unless there's a superhero emergency.
Yeah, unless there's some kind of superhero disaster. Cut to Mr. Invincible on the highway.
Meanwhile, at the superhero disaster.
Yeah, which we never talk about again.
Yeah,
because that's just what happens in this universe. Another one of my favorite things to draw was Smugly bursting out of Bobby's gym bag.
Yes.
After he brings her home, and I'm pretty sure you wrote that.
Yeah, that one was in the script because I knew that would be a funny image, and I didn't want to get too gross with it, where I was like, what's like a safe, funny thing? And I was like, gym bag, it's like dirty socks and shorts and shirts,
that's where I took it, and I'm like, okay, what would somebody like Bobby keep in his gym bag? Oh, probably like a really sweaty headband. Let's do that.
Exactly.
And then I got to design his apartment, and I got to make it all grubby. Yeah, that's the funnest things.
What was what would you say, the book is finished by now, what would you say is your favorite thing? What was your favorite thing to draw in the book?
My favorite thing to draw, the class of favorite things was definitely all the weird stuff, like Smugly bursting out of a gym bag with dirty socks, a giant cat just chasing somebody through a store. I think one of the most heartbreaking things to draw is after Smugly starts mind controlling the whole town, and Wreck-Lass meets Angel, and Angel is no longer like a human. She's been mind controlled.
There's that
but
moment.
She's still kind of a little bit conscious of what's going on. And you see, I think you just wrote in that, oh, she's sad and she meows. And I was like, okay, Angel's my favorite character. She's my little ginger bean. I have to stab myself in the heart now and draw her crying.
Yeah.
That's how I know that it's good.
It worked really well too for that character, because that character was always eminently positive. And she
Yeah.
was always like so cheerful, and also like we had established that that character was a little overprotected by her parents,
Mhm.
so she never really gets to do anything.
Yeah.
And so
And now she's been attacked by a giant cat and mind controlled, like
right,
probably in
right,
the same week.
right. We just threw her into it and just had like
Yeah.
all this stuff happen to her in this story. But she's so
Yeah.
sweet. Like the
And then
character
you get the
is
payoff at the end where like she is in this plan to stop
mm,
smuggling in the first place. So like she's included with all of the heroes.
yeah,
Then she gets to befriend a bully
yeah.
and like reach out to her literally and figuratively. And the
Hmm.
bully teaches her how to fly. And then the end she learns how to fly. And it's just like
Yeah,
ah.
that was another moment that definitely came from like we're talking about how the like I've talked about this before, like how stories grow.
Mhm.
And in the original outline, that scene probably would have been like a panel. Like I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and then her and the
That
bully
was
go and
definitely
do a
me
thing.
like shoving things in of
Yeah,
my own
and as
accord.
I was writing that chapter, like I know we had been working with that character so much, Angel specifically,
Mhm.
and I was like, you know, this character deserves, like, she needs this space to really like explain what's going on and to really
Mhm.
show the growth, and like with her and the bully, and we'd already established about how she doesn't know how to fly, and
Mhm.
so I was like, for this scene to work, we need at least a page, if not two. And it ended up
Mhm.
being like it spanned 2 pages, the whole
Yeah, I
scene,
think so. Yeah.
which originally I think was probably planned to be like a panel,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to be said just about like the flexibility needed to tell a good story. It's like
Yeah.
you got to be able to just roll with it and like know when you need to devote the space and the time to it. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's a perfect example of that. I think it played very well in the book.
Yeah, I think so too. And I hope that I'm able to do that for our next project.
I think so. You know, and that's part of it is, you know, just constantly learning and just constantly working and just
Mhm.
knowing that, you know, each thing you do next, you're just building off of what you did previously.
Yep. Even if it's bad, it's going to be like better than the last thing that you did.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, gosh, we've we've been going for an hour here,
Oh
if
boy.
you can believe it.
I think I
Um,
can after 4 years of doing this comic.
an hour is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have to cut it off just now, but we'll be a little mindful of the time. I'm trying to think of any last things we might want to say about the book, because we are promoting this book. It's on Kickstarter right
Yeah.
now. We really want to see it get printed and get in people's hands. I
Mhm.
mean, we both think it's great. You know, that
Yeah,
goes
I
without
mean,
saying.
if you like anything that we've been talking about, like superheroes and action and comedy, then you'll probably like it, and so will your kids, because that's kind
Hmm.
of who we drew it for.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's an important thing that we haven't really touched on, but it is deliberately written as an all ages book.
Hmm.
And I think kind of building off of what we were talking about earlier about being so into 90s cartoons is I definitely, as much as I love comic books, you know, I also do come from the 90s cartoons era, and
Hmm.
but also, I mean, maybe a little bit earlier, like 80s cartoons too, because I was drawing a lot from probably my favorite animated film is Don Bluth's well, I was going to say Mrs. Frisbee, but it's the movie is The Secret of
Oh,
Nim.
Secret of Nim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite books that I read was Beverly O'Cleary's The Mouse and the Motorcycle. And
Oh.
those were both huge influences on this. Also, Pippi Longstocking is
Yep.
another big one that I love. So that all kind of like went into this, and but that was definitely something that I'm hyper focused on this, the idea of like children's entertainment, because I do think that something happened in the 90s where everybody became a little hyper paranoid about kids, and
Yeah,
started like dumbing
and
things
their
down.
influences
Yeah,
in TV and
yeah, I mean, like that was like end of the 90s and the early 2000s. That's when all the paranoia about well, I mean, it just, not to bring a specific point, but like when the Columbine shootings happened, that was when everybody was like,
Mm.
oh, music, video games, movies, The
Yeah,
Matrix,
I think
like,
that's when like Doom and all those games were coming out as well.
right,
And
right. And everybody
yeah,
became overly concerned. I don't want to say overly concerned,
well, it
but
was a bit overly
it
concerned.
was, I mean, it was, but I'm trying to be fair here. But yeah, it was definitely overly concerned of just kids entertainment and how are kids going to be affected. And I think there
Mhm.
was this period where people kind of forgot how much kids can handle
Yeah.
in their fiction. Because again, like I came from the 80s, which everybody thinks of as the dark period. Like even Disney made the Black Cauldron, which,
That's right. I always
you
forget
know,
that.
but
The villain is like something you'd see on a black metal album.
right, yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I definitely tried to bring a little bit of that, not darkness, because our book is pretty colorful and it's not really dark,
Mhm.
but I did try to bring like a weight, like a heaviness to it
Mhm.
with the story. And I think so with Smugly. Like Smugly
Yeah.
is ultimately, I think it's a really tragic story, like her arc.
Yeah, it
Uh,
really is. And I really love that realism that you've given her. Like we don't talk down to kids. Like she's in a shelter, and if she doesn't get adopted, then that's it.
right.
But it really hammers home like she's desperate. Like this
Hmm.
is this is the only thing that she could think of at the time, and she's going with it. So
Right.
um, but I feel like it captures the best parts of Batman villains. Like
Hmm.
the reason that you love them so much is because you feel for them and you can put yourself in their shoes, and
Yeah.
that's what I love about them.
Yeah. I mean, Batman's a good example because, like, a lot of Batman villains, especially from the animated series, because I think the animated series is the one that reinvented most of the villains to be the versions that they are today, with the exception
Hmm.
of a few. But like a lot of villains were kind of perfected in that series.
Hmm.
I mean, most notably Mr. Freeze. Like
Oh yeah.
that character did not exist before the animated series. I mean, he did, but not in the
That
way
Arnold Schwarzenegger played him in that movie. Did that come out before or
that was
after?
after. That was
Oh
after the
wow.
Mr. Freeze animated series.
Huh.
All the stuff they did in that movie was taken from the cartoon.
Wow.
Yeah. Like before that, he was a joke. Like he was just some
Some guy with a
like
cold
jerky
gun.
guy with a cold gun.
Huh.
Exactly. And they, in the animated series, they completely reinvented him and gave him that pathos. And so,
Mm.
yeah, that was definitely something I wanted to bring to our characters because I wanted to have that element of it's a story for kids.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I do think superhero comics as a genre, they work when they're morality stories for kids.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they can't be for adults. I love Alan Moore. We'll do a whole podcast about Alan Moore. I love Alan Moore and other writers that do superheroes for adults. But it's a fine line to walk. And I definitely think that unless you're Alan Moore, superhero comics work best as morality stories for kids.
Hmm.
And so I think there's a way to do that while also being entertaining to people of all ages.
Hmm.
Like you might be an adult who doesn't want to read a kid's story, but I think it can still be fun. Like
Yeah.
I'm somebody who just I love watching cartoons. I love watching all ages entertainment. Like, and so I try to bring a lot of that to this, where it's definitely a kid's comic compared to some of the other stuff I've done. Like even Zero's Heroes that we've worked on. I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
necessarily say that's all ages. Like I feel like Zero's Heroes is more of a channeling of like adolescent comic books, like adolescent
Hmm.
superheroes. And there's definitely a difference in tone between that
Hmm.
and Zero's Hero, or I mean, Wreck-Lass. But yeah, I think that like a really good all ages superhero story is something that can be enjoyed and appreciated and understood by everybody, whether they be a kid or an adult. And
Yeah.
that's absolutely what we were shooting for. And again, I've said this like 5 times now, not to toot my own horn or our own horn, as it were, but I think we succeeded pretty good,
Yeah, I
pretty
think we
well.
did. And I'd be interested to come back and revisit this in the future. I know there's
I know,
stories that we haven't told, but maybe
absolutely.
later.
Yeah, maybe later. Yeah, we've been talking for quite a while, but again, everybody should definitely go support that Kickstarter.
Hmm.
Um, I know I would love to do more Wreck-Lass in the future, but not in the immediate future. I think we've got
No.
a few other things we want to work on, but you know, you never know what the future holds, so we'll see where things go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so like we'll wrap up the podcast here. Sarah, where can people find? Obviously, we're gonna promote the Kickstarter and put that link prominently. Smash that link to the
Yes.
Kickstarter.
The order should be like, and then the link, and then the subscribe.
Right. All of that, what she said. But where can people find your art and other stuff that you have done?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Rude Sarah, and Instagram, Project Shiro. My big page is projectshiro.com. And that's where you can find links to all of my art. Most of it you can read for free online. I know Zero's Heroes. Do you still have the PDFs up?
I do have the PDFs, I think, on secondthoughtcomics.com.
Okay.
I'll have to double check. I mean, the books are definitely for sale on Second Thought Comics, but I think I have some. I do have some preview stuff up, definitely for sure.
So yeah, that's got links to everything else, all the other socials that I'm on, YouTube, my newsletter, and portfolio.
All right. Well, great. Well, Sarah, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll do this again sometime when we're not mutually promoting a book. And we can just talk about other random stuff. Hey, everybody. Aaron Walter here, just reminding you that if you like this podcast, please subscribe to the channel. Also, head over to secondthoughtcomics.com to stay up to date on the various comics that I write. For a limited time, I'm giving away a free PDF of my latest graphic novel, The Amoral Stingray. All you have to do is sign up to the Second Thought Comics newsletter. Link is in the description. Thanks for reading.